define Liga MX as the shoot your shot league.
You do expect higher performances and better things from Club Americas, but it's the inconsistencies. With the
Isn't this inconsistent though?
I will maintain that the U.S. men's national team came out to the knockout round despite terrible coaching.
Like they have a student discount maybe to go to football games? Like they got it, right?
No.
To take that next step, I think it's still undisputed that you have to go to Europe.
He's going to be on the ground for the majority of the time. No,
I
look back at highlights.
That's the Christian Pulisic treatment, though.
Same.
We're going to have to stop this. We're going to start arguing on this podcast, aren't we?
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Real Futbol Show. As always, I'm Lizzie, U.S. editor, covering all things North American soccer for 90min.com/US. Happy International Women's Day to all if you're listening live, and if you're listening later, then happy belated International Women's Day with my co-host, Gino Canello. How are you?
Yes, happy International Women's Day to you as well, Lizzie. Obviously, an integral part of what we do here at 90min US. Along with all the other 90min, women that are, so integral to the company and what we do here. Happy International Women's Day to them. You guys do phenomenal work. You guys work your butts off. So, you guys definitely deserve that appreciation. How am I? I'm doing great. We have more MLS to talk about. Second week, we got a little bit more information on some of these teams, a little bit better, some cool moments. So it's going to be exciting. And then, of course, we'll talk about Liga MX and, CONCACAF Champions League. It is all starting to come together now. It's all starting to roll. And it seems like we have soccer in America here, every single day. So that's great.
Yeah, it's in full swing. And before we know it, we have Nations League and international breaks. And then this summer of soccer that we have the Women's World Cup, CONCACAF Gold Cup, Leagues Cup, everything and anything in between. Major League Soccer's All-Star Weekend. Yeah, we really just have it all. So to get started, lead us into MLS Match Day 2.
Yeah, I mean, a lot to go over this week. Obviously, we can't touch on all of it. We will. We're not going to be able to touch on Match Day 3 today, but as always, we will, as always from now on, we will always have a Twitter preview, Twitter Spaces preview show for Match Day 3. That ours will take place tomorrow. Still unsure of the time, so make sure you follow the account below my face here and look out for that time. But that will be tomorrow. But in terms of Match Day 2, I think we have to start off with the two Los Angeles teams, the teams that didn't play, and specifically we have to start off with LAFC. They get their rings. Just an unbelievable, moment for them. First time winning the championship. We have the ring to show you guys to look at. So right here, I mean, a couple cool things about it, which I thought was very, very awesome about the detail. 67 diamonds, I think it was, for the amount of points that they scored during the season. There's 128 black diamonds on it for the 128th minute game-tying goal by Gareth Bale in the MLS Cup final, and then 76 total white diamonds on it for the amount of goals they scored over the course of the season. So, I mean, very cool ring. But again, we saw LAFC back in action. Your thoughts on, I guess the ring, their action when beating Portland 3-2. Your thoughts on everything LAFC related.
I thought it was a very interesting start to the season for them. Obviously, we know their season opener against LA Galaxy at the Rose Bowl was postponed to July 4th due to bad weather and crazy snow conditions and rain. Odd to LA, but it was a very interesting. Yeah, really, just very odd altogether. But it was interesting to see them come back. We know they had a couple of changes to the roster during the offseason. Chicho Arango predominantly. I mean, Gareth Bale, though, he played an integral part to the final. He was on and off during the season. So for me, it was more how the team was going to react without Chicho on that squad. And they did well. Portland is not an easy team by all means. I think last season was somewhat of a fluke for them, injury oriented and just several changes from their end. But They're not an easy team to beat. I definitely didn't have Chiellini scoring on my bingo card right away. So that was
I don't
great to
think
see.
anybody did. I'm not even
Yeah,
sure
not
Giorgio
really.
Chiellini had it on his bingo card.
So that was great. I think his celebration was really sweet for those who say he's not excited to be in LA or it's the downturn of his career. I think it was a wonderful goal and a wonderful team celebration altogether, but a great way to start the season and kind of saying no to that champion's curse that we hear all about constantly.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of expected them to come out maybe a little flat. Obviously, there's a big question about who's going to score the
Yeah.
goals now. Gareth Bale not there, Chicharito not there. They came out, they went up 3-0, kind of silenced that completely. Again, they gave up 2
Yeah.
goals, later and made it a little closer than it probably was. 3-2. Portland is, like you said, Portland's not an easy team to go out there and beat. So for them to come out, they had one less week of preparation than Portland did. Portland's already played a game. A lot of things were working against LAFC. And they kind of put all that to the side and said, "Don't worry, we're still the champions." So
Yeah.
they went out there, they took care of business. Obviously, I'm sure a little hyped up with the championship ceremony, the banner, all that happening. Obviously, a packed house, new stadium name, BMO Field or whatever they're calling it
Yeah.
now. I mean, there's 17 BMO fields in the MLS now. So, but yeah, so LAFC came out. They came out hot, got their ring, showed everybody why they're the champs. They have the depth, and obviously we'll see what they can do now moving forward. Again, when things start to calm down a little bit and there isn't that adrenaline, they go on the road. Will they still be able to score those goals? But they did silence some of the critics this weekend. Moving forward, though, to the other LA team who did not silence many critics without their star striker, LA Galaxy, who had a very disappointing 3-1 loss to FC Dallas. Chicharito obviously did not play, still out with that injury. Your thoughts on the performance of the Galaxy? I have my own thoughts about Dallas, but we'll start with the Galaxy.
Well, I think it was interesting how they handled it without Chicharito. He obviously is out with a hamstring injury, and he alone announced on Twitch that he'd be out for 2 to 5 weeks. But we know hamstring injuries are quite finicky sometimes, so whether that's extended or not will be very interesting. I think Galaxy will suffer without him, and they didn't necessarily make the right adjustments during the offseason. They did have some additions, some defenders. We saw a loan for a Julian Araujo replacement, but they just didn't live up to the expectations, which was disappointing because it's not like FC Dallas had a phenomenal game either. I'm particularly interested by Efrain Alvarez, the Mexican forward part of the Galaxy. He didn't see many minutes last season, and I'd like to see him thrive this season. If anything, right now is the chance because Chicharito's off on the sidelines, so it's really up to Greg Vanney to lean on him and utilize that going forward. But though he may look young, I think he's 23 or 22 or 23 now, so he really needs to step it up. And maybe if he gets consistent minutes, he will. But that's the most interesting aspect for me on that team. Ricky Puig's still a lot left to be desired. He's fast. He's quick on the ball, sure, but it's still a promise at this point.
Yeah, I mean, Ricky Puig, he did not have a good game in this one. He did not get on the ball nearly enough in this game. And even when he was on the ball, he kind of was neutralized. So not a great game from him coming out as really being that star minus Chicharito, that guy who really is supposed to be able to run that offense. So
the
not a great game
player,
from him.
as we know.
Exactly. The designated player, getting paid that money. It's important. You got to perform. There's only 3 slots for designated players. So if you're not performing as a designated player, that's a problem. So he needs to step it up. Obviously, they struggled to score without a defined striker that is a defined starter and has been a defined starter. Obviously, I think it's Joveljic started the game. He's a guy who we talked about on our Twitter Spaces preview last week, me and Edwin. And we talked about it and said, this is a guy who was able to score off the bench, but was he going to be able to do it in a game and look effective in a game? Now, I believe he scored the only goal of this one. I have to
Mhm.
double check, but still was not on the ball and was not as much of a presence in that forward position as I'm sure the LA Galaxy would have liked. And this is not the result the LA Galaxy needed after all of the kind of fan anger that's been pointed towards Chris Klein and the Galaxy organization leading up to this
Yeah.
season. So not what you want to see from the LA Galaxy side. FC Dallas, on the other hand, I thought they had a decent game, a pretty solid game. I thought that they were able to control the game basically from start to finish. They didn't really allow LA Galaxy to do too much, whether that is LA Galaxy just being poor or
Yeah.
FC Dallas actually imposing their will. That's maybe a different question to be asked. Obviously, Jesus Ferreira gets on the score sheet twice this match for the first time this season. After coming back from the World Cup, after having a great season last year, goal scoring wise. So good for Dallas that they could get going at home against LA Galaxy. LA Galaxy wise, this is not a good look for them in their first match of the season for sure.
No, and it was disappointing because it doesn't seem like a team that's been practicing for 6 consecutive weeks. I feel like this is their first preseason game back from vacation, back from international break. It seemed like there was no connection between the back line when obviously it's so important to have communication. And we saw those errors come in, allowing 3 goals. And I maintain they weren't necessarily phenomenal goals by Jesus Ferreira. So they really should have stepped up and done a lot better when it came to defending that. So it'll be interesting to see moving forward how they react. Again, it was their first game of the season, even though it's match day 2. So if they pick up and react to that going forward, that's great. Genuine worry or overreacting, I don't know. I think genuine worry is the lack of communication with these players that know each other and have been together for a long period of time. So
yeah, no, I think it's not a genuine worry, but it doesn't help the situation. You know, it's not. This was again a team that had some turmoil coming into the season off the pitch, a team that kind of needed a win and needed to maybe not even needed to win, but needed to look good against FC Dallas in their first match. Didn't get what they needed to get, and it doesn't help the situation anymore. It doesn't hurt the situation anymore, probably. It's game 1 of 38, or however many they play. I think it's 38. So it's not like it's a major issue, but it also didn't look good on the pitch for like strong portions of that game. So I think it's not a genuine reason to worry, but I do think that it's not helping the situation.
It's definitely not, and I think even more concerning that people are looking to Chicharito's injury as the excuse for the performance when the attack wasn't necessarily the most concerning aspect of what happened on that field. It was the defense, and everyone was intact, barring obviously Julian Araujo, but he left a little bit ago. You should have had that handled.
And I mean, again, they did attack that left side of the pitch, which would have been Julian Araujo's side, a decent amount. You saw Velasco attacking down that side. I believe at points they switched Paul Arriola to that side, and it seemed like there was a lot flowing down that left side where Julian Araujo would have been. But still, again, you're right. It's not the rest of the defense should have a pretty good familiarity with each other. So that's a little bit of an issue. Moving forward now, we'll move over from the Western Conference teams over to the Eastern Conference. We had a big matchup this weekend. We had a couple big matchups. Orlando, since he didn't really live up to the hype, a 0-0 draw. But Inter Miami Philly, the big game, a big one we talked about a lot on the preview show. Inter Miami gets a 2-0 win over league, league champions from last year. Conference champions from last year. Philadelphia Union, a team that was coming off a 4-1 win at home. Your thoughts on the Miami performance? Are they the new? I mean, obviously this might be an overreaction, but you got to say it when Philly is the team that everybody kind of expected to be the best again. Is Inter Miami better than we expected and possibly the new big dog in the East?
Ooh, okay. I would tone that down just a little bit. I don't think they're
I
the
don't
big
know.
dog of the East just yet. Even Phil Neville said it after the game. We aren't super happy at the moment. It wasn't the best performance we could have given. So I'm not overly excited about our achievement quite yet. I do agree they are way above what they provided last season. They're doing a lot better and kind of riding off the momentum at the end of the 22 campaign, which is great. It's nice to see Miami doing well. My only concern at the moment is the fact that these fresh young faces are making an impact while players like Leo Campana are injured, and whether that's going to change the dynamic of the squad once he comes back. Is Phil Neville going to insert Leo Campana and potentially slow down the team or change the dynamic? That would be a huge concern because they're doing so well right now. But when considering seniority, there's a conversation to be had, especially because he did score last season. So that's something to watch on our end. But yeah, they are doing better. But Philadelphia also extremely disappointing. Miami took advantage of that, sure, and they did well. But Philly was extremely disappointed. And for the second time now, because as we'll get into with the CONCACAF Champions League, they were extremely disappointing against Alianza as well, using players like Carranza and Gazdag. So it might just be
in fairness, Gazdag and Carranza didn't come out on until about 15 minutes left in the game yesterday. But I know what you're saying about this.
It was I believe they came in at minute 62.
62. So okay, maybe it was a little bit.
Quite a little bit to make an impact.
30 minutes.
I mean, we can talk about Jim Curtin's disrespect to use a B team, but we'll get into that later.
Listen, we'll get into it later. I don't look at it as disrespect, but we'll get into it later.
Oh, okay. But yes, so against Inter Miami, they were still disappointing. They were still disappointing against Inter Miami. That doesn't take credit away from their victory. I think they maximized on the opportunity.
Yeah.
Great potential, great goals. Robert Taylor, phenomenal strike. But Philly needs to step up. You can't ride from the first victory, especially because, what was it? Was it against the Crew, correct?
It was against the Crew, Rapids. The Columbus Crew it was against the Columbus Crew. What I will say about Philly's win against the Columbus Crew is there was 2 penalties in that game, so kind of lopsides the score a little bit more than it probably should have been, and Wilfred Nancy still working with that team to get them to play the way they want.
Right.
But again, I mean, Philly, yes, I think it's right to say that Philly has been disappointing. Again, they scored 4 goals, but they've only scored 2 goals from open play so far this season, including last night's Champions League 0-0 draw. So that's a problem. Everybody expected this team to be even better than they were last season because they kept everybody and made additions. Yeah. And I think to start off this season, they're having a little bit of growing pains here with, I mean, we know I know that loss to LAFC obviously hurt, and they're looking to get back on, back up. And there's a lot of pressure on them in again, as I will say over and over again, what seems to be a weak East to just go out and steamroll everybody. But they haven't looked good. They haven't looked good in the 2 matches that they've played in the MLS. Again, even though they won 4-1, that was a great match by them. They did go down 1-0 in that game, I think.
I will say, and I think this is to Edwin's happiness, barring Inter Miami, we've seen a very slow start to the Major League Soccer season. I think no team has truly taken the reins or impressed with their capacity to take over. I've seen very much a transition from what is like preseason to the MLS season. Disappointing. I don't know. I don't know if it's fatigue. I don't know if players are getting now into shape. I'm not sure, but
Edwin wants to know your thoughts on Phil Neville, who DeAndre Edlin says preaches togetherness. So your thoughts on the togetherness that Phil Neville is sharing with this team. Everybody seems to like Phil Neville except for you, Lizzie.
I don't dislike Phil Neville. Well, I dislike what he did with the England's women's team. But beyond that, I think he's great when it comes to motivational speaking. I think he does do well on that end. And I'm sure when DeAndre Yedlin says he preaches togetherness, he does have a very united locker room. However, when it comes to tactics and specifics, I think he's absolutely lost. He has no clue. And I say this after a couple interviews with him. One in particular last season, I asked him before the start of the 22 campaign what his style was going to be on the pitch, and he just had no response. Like, he had nothing to say. And I don't mean in the way that Luchi Gonzalez answered us and said, hey, I'm keeping that a secret for now, but my boys know what's going on. We have our system down. Phil Neville didn't have a system. He didn't have a style. He didn't have a system. He didn't have tactics in place. I truly think it works when he says, get out there and do your best. And these players do their best and they win, which is great. But the concerning aspect is if they're 3-0 down in the middle of a game, they look to you to make those necessary changes and analyze what's going on the field. And I don't think he has the capacity to do that very well.
Yeah, but is that like but I don't know. I feel like it's okay. I mean, the subs that he's made have had impacts. It's not like hasn't had like at least this
But what
season.
challenge what challenge have they faced at the moment?
I mean, they were only 1-0. It's not like they were up 2-0 the whole game. I mean, they were only up 1-0 at, until Taylor's goal. Like it's not like it was. Yeah, but I think still you have to, as a coach, you have to figure out a way to make sure that the other team doesn't score a goal through 90 minutes.
Yeah, but I wouldn't credit him for that.
but he had to make the changes. I don't know, Lizzie. It sounds like you're...
No. I think he's a great motivational speaker. I think these players love him and rally around him. And I think as long as there's good results, he will continue to do well. But I personally don't trust him to sit, read a game, analyze what's going on, and make the necessary, I don't even want to say adjustments, but I just feel like he can't read a game or analyze what's going on tactically.
At what point in this season do you say, okay, maybe Phil Neville has somewhat of an idea of what he's doing? What do they have to do?
I think when they face Western Conference giants, they're down by 2, and he gets that 4-2 comeback win and is top 4 in the Eastern Conference. Then I will give Phil Neville hype.
He has to be down. He has to be down in a game to a Western Conference title contender,
giant,
and then come back and win it. And that's when you'll let him. That's when you will give him credit.
A couple comeback victories and top 4 of the Eastern Conference, and I will give into the ridiculous 90-min Phil Neville hype.
We're pushing the 90-min Phil Neville bias here on. This has nothing to do with Phil Neville being a former Everton player either, by the way. But yes, no. Listen, I agree that there's still a lot to be desired, but beating the Eastern Conference champs from last year, an Eastern Conference champ team that didn't lose many players. Granted, it was at home. They have played their first 2 games at home. They still need to go away, so that's something that needs to be figured out. But I think Miami is starting to live up to the hype a little bit. And this is a big step in the right direction. It may not be all of it. They may not be the new big dogs in the East, but it is a massive, massive step in the right direction for Inter Miami. So, yeah. Moving on now to probably the biggest party in all of MLS this past weekend. We go to St. Louis. The beautiful City Park, brand new facility that they've built now with their expansion franchise. I have been there. It's stunning. They opened up their new stadium this past weekend to a crowd of 22,423 people, which is about 70 people less than their capacity. So we'll call it a sellout crowd.
Sellout crowd.
It was an interesting game for sure because everything that could have possibly happened in a soccer match happened in this game. You had own goals, penalties, deflections, bad passes out of the back. I mean, I don't want to say it, but in a way, Charlotte kind of handed them this game because
Yeah.
everything that was good for St. Louis came from a massive Charlotte mistake.
Yeah.
But
For a second week in a row now, we've seen.
yep, and that leads questions about Charlotte, which, you know, is a little worrying because they haven't scored a goal, or no, they scored 1 goal this season. Great in this match. They lost this match 3-1 to St. Louis. Enzo Capetti getting the goal, their new addition there. But in terms of St. Louis, I mean, I don't know what you thought. Atmosphere looked unbelievable there. We've talked about it over and over again. This is a soccer city, and they were ready for this. And it just looked like a great time. It looked like everybody was, you know, just enjoying themselves and getting that win. And I'm sure they fed off that. But getting that win is a huge step in the right direction now, as St. Louis is only the 4th MLS franchise ever to win their first 2 matches in the MLS, and the first since LAFC in 2018. So all good from them.
Yeah, great job. No, I thought it was super exciting for them to see how they were doing. The fans deserve this. They've been great since their franchise was announced in 2020. Caroline Kindle, the owner and president of St. Louis City FC, has done a phenomenal job of rallying the city. And again, we know it's soccer city, so it's not difficult, but they've just done a phenomenal job of establishing who they are and the atmosphere that they want to build at City Park. So much deserving from the fans' perspective. Yeah. And as a team, I think it's great. Like, not because they've been handed errors, but because they're maximizing on them. Mm-hmm. Though they have been lucky, granted, I'm not necessarily seeing a team that's just been together for 6 weeks. I feel them united and communicating with one another as if it's this 2-year-old team just coming back. I saw them better than I did Charlotte, and it's not Charlotte's inaugural season anymore. It's their second campaign in Major League Soccer. And it's something unique that both Joao Klaus and Romy Burke spoke on during MLS Media Day in January, that they didn't think that the team would be so united at this point as they were. And in that point, they were just in preseason. So I can't even imagine now having their own installations, training every week together and in St. Louis at home. So good on them.
Yeah. Go ahead. Continue.
No. They have been lucky. I do want to stress that they have been lucky, but they've also managed their luck well.
Yes. I mean, again, you see, you know, with the back pass out of the back, you still have to put the ball in the back of the net. With the penalty, you still have to put the ball in the back of the net. The own goal, obviously, is a luck factor. But again, they have looked very – no, yeah. I mean, I agree that they've been very lucky because, again, we talked about it last week, the Jared Stroud back pass thing that happened against Austin. You know, that's just I mean, it still would have been 2-2 after that. Right. But that's, you know, you don't get all 3 points with that. And, you know, who knows what the result of this one would have been without the own goal and the penalty. You know, it's a lot of luck involved in that. But they have looked much better than I think a lot of people expected them to look like. I mean, I know for example, like, I don't think either of us expected them to get wins in their, definitely not their first match. And definitely not in the first 2 matches, maybe a couple draws, but they have looked very solid. So that's huge. And it's not like they haven't faced adversity. Like they were down 2-1 against Austin in Austin. So this is a team that looks a lot more solid than a lot of people expected them to look, especially defensively. But long season to go. And I guess you kind of answered the question already. Are we underestimating them? Is this a team that can carry this through? I think it might be. I think it might be a team that can fight, probably not get in the playoff spot by the end of it. But now that there's 9 teams in the playoffs, I think that they'll be part of the mix towards the end of the season. So I don't think they'll make the playoffs. I think there's going to be ups and downs. And, you know, granted, we'll talk about Austin a little bit, a team that I don't think either of us has impressed so far this season. Right. And a Charlotte side who's only in their second season. But, you know, we'll see how they perform against the LAFCs of the world, the Philadelphia Unions of the world. But 6 points from 2 games, tied at the top of the league, you really can't ask for anything more than that. So huge from them.
I disagree with you. No, huge win, yes. But I disagree with you. I do think they'll make the playoffs. I see them a
Okay.
lot more consistent than a couple other teams who've also gotten victories this past match day. I don't know. I think it all started when they started building their roster. They catered
Yeah.
to the needs of Major League Soccer instead of trying to sign this attractive new name to call into fans. I don't think they held that pressure in particular because it's Soccer City and fans were going to come
Yeah.
out anyway. So they built to what the league requires, and they've done well. So I don't know.
Well,
I see them in the
and
playoffs.
their academy is like a very big part of their team already. Their MLS Next Pro
Yeah.
team, they've built from the academy, and they've already been signing players from the academy. One of which Perez, who we saw make an appearance in this game, at just I think 17 years old. So they are building from the academy. They're not trying to, again, as you said, a lot of these teams come in and just sign these big playoffs or playoffs. I saw the word playoffs at the bottom there. Sign these big players. And they didn't do that. They were just like, we're going to kind of make sure we get the right players for the right fit. They brought in a big name, I guess a bigger name, and Berkey to play in goal. But Klaus is not someone who many people are familiar with. He's only 25. He's already had a great start to the season. So it seems like they've built this team the right way. And not only to just succeed in this season or the next season, but to succeed throughout the future. And that's a massive, a massive thing to worry about. So really good job by St. Louis City. The only reason I say I'm not sure they make it in the playoffs is because the West is the West. It's significantly better than the East. I think in the East, they might have a little bit easier time, but definitely a great start for them. And then just a couple things we need to touch on before we wrap this up and get into CONCACAF Champions League. But Lizzie, your dark horse actually won a game this week.
They won!
Look at that. They saw it out.
I'm so happy.
We need to it's International Women's Day. We need to make sure Lizzie gets this in there. She made a very good pick with San Jose. So, obviously they looked good. Your thoughts on just seeing them again? Obviously, it's two games in a row now where they've looked good, but this is the first win. So,
yes, I will say they looked great, as we said last time, against Atlanta United. It was absolutely impossible to save those Thiago Almada free kicks and those goals, absolutely impossible. So barring that, they could have won there, which Mercedes-Benz is an unreal atmosphere and a great location to play at. Very difficult for the opponent. So kudos there. But yes, they finally won their home opener. First win under Luchi Gonzalez, the new head coach. And as they are boasting on their social media channels, a new era, which I truly think it is. These players have talent. Jeremy Ebobisse, I believe his last name is pronounced, has potential.
Ebobisse, that's how it is. I kept forgetting how to pronounce it. It's Ebobisse. That's what they said on the broadcast, at least.
My Spanish will get me every time, but he
I thought it was Ebobisse too.
He's gotten on the score sheet. He's doing great. Cade Cowell did not, but he still has the potential to go far. As we reported earlier, he's been scouted by a couple of European teams now, and he's being looked at constantly because he does have that talent. So first win, but the first of many, I predict. They're doing well, and they're a contender. I don't think they'll be top 4 in the West because it's a very difficult year for the West. But I do think they'll make playoffs and definitely not end in last place like they did last season.
Yeah, they don't look like they'll do that. They do have a lot of their wings are very, very good. Cade Cowell is he looked very good. Did not score, but looked very good and missed a couple key chances. He could have scored in this one, just did not take his chances. And I guess that's the only thing that worries me about this team, San Jose, because this game could have been a lot better or looked a lot better from a scoreline perspective. They missed a bunch of key chances in this one, last game as well. So they need to take advantage of that if they're going to, continue on the success and build on this success. But they looked very good against Vancouver, and Vancouver is a team that, we'll see. I don't know if they're going to be that great this season, but you need to get, San Jose went in, they did the job, they took control of the game. Cade Cowell looks amazing in a cowboy hat with a mustache.
Okay.
I mean, that's stunning. That's stunning. I mean, I love it. It's my favorite look of all time.
What a look.
I wanted to do
Okay,
this thing
Cal.
where I'm going to go skiing in a little bit, not today, but sometime this month. I wanted to do the mustache with the 80s ski suit, but the mustache
okay.
with the cowboy hat looks really good. I think he pulls it off. I don't know.
I mean, it's definitely the
Lizzie's not as
wild,
convinced.
wild west.
Definitely the
Just
wild,
gonna
wild west.
keep it at the west.
Fashion icon Cade Cowell.
Oh, okay.
I wonder how
We love it.
that look would be received in like Europe. If he were to move to Europe, you think he could pull off that? I feel like that would be received very poorly in Europe.
I'm gonna take it closer to home, just New York, just like
Just
downtown.
New York. No, I think you can pull it off in New York.
Striding down Manhattan, just like. I'm gonna go.
I don't know.
At least not
He's
in
a real
Miami.
He's a Texas boy, right? I mean, that's assuming why. I'm assuming this is just not a fashion trend. I'm pretty sure he's a Texas boy.
I think he was born in California. No, he was born in California. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's an interesting look for a California kid. I'm kind of surprised by that, but nonetheless, our fashion device is really not important to anybody on this podcast.
No.
San Jose looks great. Good call by you. They should continue here as long as they can work on their finishing and get that ball in the back of the net a little bit more. Yeah. Let's move on to a team, and let's move on to CONCACAF Champions League first before we talk about this team. Can you just, for the audience, the wider audience here, let's describe what CONCACAF Champions League is? Because we are not, in America, I feel like a lot of people do not know what CONCACAF Champions League is. They don't even know it exists. I think now with the MLS winning last year, people are starting to come on their map a little bit more. So let's talk a little bit, just explain what a CONCACAF Champions League is and how it works from all the different perspectives.
Yes. So CONCACAF Champions League is an international tournament featuring CONCACAF's best teams. So usually each league, domestic league, gets a certain amount of spots, and the best teams are then going to the tournament. So North America in particular or MLS in particular has 5 spots. MLS Cup winner, Eastern Conference, Western Conference winner. Then Canada has whoever wins the Canadian Championship winner. Usually it's an MLS team because it's either Whitecaps Montreal or Toronto. This year was Whitecaps. So they're there. Liga MX teams are present. I believe there are 4 Liga MX teams present at the moment. Oh, here makes it so much easier. Thank you, Edwin. So there's from Haiti, we have El Salvador, Honduras, and Liga MX, MLS, Canada. The best of the best come to the CONCACAF Champions League. And I think the only way to describe it is chaos. It is absolute chaos to see every team. Oh.
I just had a question.
Okay.
Okay. Can you just explain? Can you just explain how? So obviously, for El Salvador, Honduras, Canada, it's easy to figure out how those teams get in there. But for teams in the MLS and teams in Liga MX, how do those teams qualify for the CONCACAF Champions League?
So for MLS, it's MLS Cup winner, then Supporter Shield winner, then Eastern Conference and Western Conference, and then Canada Championship. And then for Liga MX, it's Apertura winner, Clausura winner, and I believe runner-ups. Usually
I think for US too, it's US Open Cup winner.
US Open Cup. Yeah. US Open Cup winner as well. So that would make it Orlando City. So MLS in general has 5. As we said, MLS Cup, Eastern Conference winner, Western Conference winner, Supporter Shield winner, and US Open Cup winner. It becomes difficult with MLS in particular because sometimes you have double winner like we did with LAFC last season. So you have to go with runner-up, which is very interesting, as we saw with Austin FC. That's why they're there. In the Western Conference, they were runner-up to LAFC. So, that's what we have. It's an international tournament, best of the best, chaos. And yesterday was the first leg of the 2023 campaign, and it was in fact chaos.
It was, yes. No, it was chaos. And we'll start with that team you just mentioned, Austin FC.
Yes.
MLS, CONCACAF Champions League, they have not looked good. Let's just be straight up about it. Like, they have not looked
Not
good
good
at all.
is an understatement.
I mean, this is a team that Lizzie had winning the whole thing. I mean, how could you even make that prediction?
That's so embarrassing. Yeah, that's a great question.
I mean, it's more embarrassing
pick,
for them, but
yeah, I was gonna say my pick is as embarrassing as their performance last night against Violet. For context, Violet is a Haitian team, and both Austin FC and Violet faced each other in the Dominican Republic because of just scenes in Haiti and how that league is handling itself at the moment. So they went to a neutral ground, and Austin FC lost 3-0 to Violet. That third goal was an own goal. Great goal, but just in the wrong net.
they put it in the net last night. That's important to note.
Yeah, which net? They probably confused it. But yeah, no, it was an embarrassing loss. Josh Wolf, head coach of Austin FC, has since come out and said it's completely on me. I forgot, or I didn't prepare my team well mentally. I forgot to kind of show them that
I forgot this game was coming up.
Yeah, I think he basically just said, I failed to prepare them for the different animal or different beast that was the CONCACAF Champions League. And yeah, he definitely did that, but he played like their B team. So you didn't fail to prepare them. You just didn't play them, which I think is overestimating your substitutes because and also, I mean, we can get into this because Philly also did this and played their Nesta B
let's
team.
talk about
Why
it.
are you resting players? No, why are you resting players? It's the second week of the season. Why are you resting players? You need to get them into the rhythm. It's literally match day. It was after match day too. You shouldn't be resting anybody. Are you afraid they're going to get injured? What are you doing?
I mean, I think it's fair. I think that's a fair point.
No.
Why would you rest 2 weeks in? But at the same point, like, I don't know. I feel like from a Philly perspective, like, I feel like their depth is probably good enough. They should have been good enough to win yesterday. No?
Like, they definitely should have.
Like, Jack McGlynn is on their bench.
Right. No, they're good to hold probably a 1-0. It was disappointing from their substitutes. But at this point, why are you aiming for a 1-0? You should aim for a 5-0. Why are you resting these players who need to get into the rhythm of it all and understand? A lot of these teams have never been in the CONCACAF Champions League, and you're playing the substitutes from the get-go. Are you not trying to teach them what this competition is about and expose them to the new aspects of an international tournament? Your players.
Makes sense. Makes sense. No, that makes sense. I mean, again, the Austin one doesn't make sense because I think Austin should just be playing players because clearly their start has not been good. And I guess Philly probably in the same way, right? I just look at it as, again, it's different. So the way I think it would be easier to say rest the players in the CONCACAF Champions League if, per se, rest some players, right? Like rest a few players if there was a group stage and it wasn't 2-round knockouts. I guess 2-leg knockout. I think at least then you'd be like, okay, well, if this guy doesn't play every single group stage game, they're playing most of their players and they, most of their players throughout the group stage and they'll get through. They're not worried about getting through, right? Whereas in a two-leg race, it's a little bit different. Or in a 2-leg game.
I think it's different. I think, and I said this in the beginning, I think the team that has a decent amount of depth to their roster has the ability to win this tournament. However, you're not balancing MLS playoffs, Leagues Cup, and CONCACAF Champions League all at the same time. It's a
US Open Cup.
And US Open Cup. It's a midweek game after 2 regular season matches. Your team is not up to par with even other MLS teams. You just lost to Inter Miami. Talking about Philly. You just lost to Inter Miami. Why are you resting your best players and having Carranza come in at minute 62 to save the 0-0? I simply don't understand. And these coaches, Jim Curtin, Josh Wolf, they talk about the valuable experience that you gain from playing year after year, and you have the best opportunity to expose your players to essentially a great experience, and you shield them from that.
Yeah,
It's
and I mean
difficult for me to understand.
Orlando was a little similar. They did not play their full starting lineup either, I don't think. So I wonder.
They
I'll be
did
interested
better
to see
though.
today. But they did better, and I'll be interested to see what the situation is tonight with the Vancouver Whitecaps. Right? They have an extra day of rest, so it's like instead it's Saturday to Tuesday. It'll be Saturday to Wednesday now, right? So it'll be interesting to see if the Vancouver Whitecaps decide to go with a full starting lineup. So definitely, no, I agree with you. I see what you're saying.
I think the only reason I said disrespect before is using Orlando as an example. They probably rested, I think, one player to their starting 11, but really went all out because Tigres is a difficult opponent and it's a Liga MX team. Should Austin FC or Philadelphia Union have faced Pachuca or Tigres, I don't necessarily think they would have played their B team.
I don't think so either.
So it's underestimating your opponent, and I think these results was the best wake-up call for these MLS coaches who think they are above certain teams of the CONCACAF Champions League. Austin is facing an impossible uphill battle against Violet, a position Josh Wolf never imagined that he would be in. Wake-up call.
Yeah. I mean, yes, I agree. I don't know. The disrespect, I don't know as much, because would you say like Bayern Munich starting their B team against like Red Star would be disrespectful if they tied 0-0?
Different. No, but that's different. What I mean is they played their B team knowing that they were an easy CONCACAF opponent. They weren't worried. They're like, we'll play our B team. It doesn't matter. It's a Haitian team whose league has seen interruptions constantly. We're going to win even with our B team. And you lost 3-0. Like an embarrassing 3-0.
I understand. I guess I'm just looking at it more as like if like a European team was going up against like say like I don't know. I don't even know where Red Star Belgrade is from, but like a team that was in a lower league, like they're a Premier League team, like Manchester City playing a team that's in a lower league. I feel like they rest their starters a lot of time too.
I think depends what position and timing you're in the season. If Austin FC was playing the Western Conference Final on Saturday, rest all the players that you want. But don't think you're above any team after 2 games. One of which you also lost.
Yeah, I mean Austin FC very much, and they probably honestly they almost lost. They almost tied and did not score a goal against Montreal either. Who Montreal is not as good as they were last year. So
no,
that's fair. That's a fair point. That's a fair point. Anything else you wanted to touch on? Anything else you want to touch on with CONCACAF Champions League?
Oh, so much. First and foremost, I want to highlight the best thing that happened during the Philadelphia against Alianza game. It was a mediocre 0-0 performance by both sides, and it was the dog, the lovely little dog that interrupted the game. The best boy just made a beeline for the ball.
I was watching this game with my wife, and she does not really watch soccer that much. But she was looked up from her computer and she just goes, "Oh my God, there's a dog on the field." I was like, "Oh, would you look at that?" So a very good boy. Very good boy.
A very good boy. I just started yelling dog until Luis, my husband, came out and was like, what? And he saw the dog. So that was a lovely little appearance to a very, very boring 0-0 game. But before we head into Liga MX, we have to talk about Orlando City versus Tigres. Very surprising 0-0 result. Very lucky for Orlando City. Tigres dominated the entire match. They really, I think it was some very poor crosses into the box, but they should have scored on at least 3 occasions. And now Orlando benefits from that because the second leg obviously is at home. And without, obviously, André Pierre Gignac, who has come out and said he will probably not, or he hasn't, not probably, he, for personal reasons, does not travel to the United States. We saw that during MLS All-Star as well, and a couple other friendly Tigres matches in the United States, and we know it's because of his vaccination status. He is not vaccinated and can't come into the country, so he will not feature in the second leg, most likely this time around as well, if following patterns. So Orlando City really lucky there.
Yeah. Orlando City, definitely the best of the results, considering they did not score a goal. Just really good job on them just being able to keep Tigres out of the net. Obviously Pedro Galice is, there has been their
MVP
star
there.
player so far this season. Yeah, I don't think he's given up a goal this season. I think they beat whoever they beat Red Bull 1-0 and then 2-0 draws and back-to-back. So good on them for keeping that out. And like you said, going to Orlando against a Tigres team that's going to be out without Gignac is going to be a plus for Orlando City. And, not being able to go back to Orlando and possibly knock out Tigres, who are always a favorite to win this tournament, I feel like. I think that would be huge, not only for Orlando, but for the MLS's hopes of winning CONCACAF Champions League again this season.
Yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't underestimate Nico Ibanez and Gorrian, but it's definitely a leg up not having Gignac there to headline that attack. So Orlando City, very lucky on that end, and we will see what happens in a couple weeks' time. But they're definitely the winners of these MLS teams in the CONCACAF Champions League, barring the Vancouver Whitecaps, who, as you said, played tonight.
Yes. Yeah. We'll see what happens with the Whitecaps tonight. They take on Real Espana. I don't know where you may know where they're from. But they're at home. Yeah. So Vancouver is going to get a chance tonight to take that, the opportunity now to go up in the CONCACAF Champions League. It's an important one for them because they have not looked good so far this season. So we'll see what happens with Vancouver. And it'll be interesting to see. They've taken leads in both of the games that they've played. I believe they took a lead in both of the games they played, and they were unable to hold on to that lead or expand on that lead. It'll be interesting to see if they get a lead tonight, if they'll be able to hold on or expand on that. But I think that's it from CONCACAF Champions League and MLS. What do you got for us, League MX?
Well, what do I have for you? Cruz Azul lost 3-1 against Mazatlan.
This is the thing. We're not talking about it. Skip to the next topic. We're not talking about it. We didn't talk about it for 2 weeks, and they won 3 games. We're skipping over.
Mazatlan, really just one of the worst teams this season after 11 games. One of the absolute worst, bottom team. Defeated Cruz Azul 3-1. That was phenomenal. No one expected that. Great to watch. I enjoyed that. Gino, did you?
I'm just here so I don't get fined. I have no comment.
That's come on. Great sports reference.
Come on. Great sports reference. Yes,
I'm sure that's what the Ferretti said.
We love that. I'm sure in the locker room they were quoting Marshawn Lynch. This so frustrating, man. They win 3 in a row. They get the worst team in the league, and they just
shoe-in. Should have been a shoe-in.
Yeah, but they take an absolute dive in an important match. Like, that's like a match you get 3 points. Where would they be right now? Let's check the standings. Easy. 3 points, they'd be in 8th place above Santos Laguna. So I mean, they're still in a playoff spot. Whatever. Yeah. Well, they'd be up there. Whatever. They'd be 3 points, 4 points away from topping Club America, who had an awful, disgusting loss this week.
First of all, we'll talk about that disgusting loss. Okay, sure.
but yeah, it's not good, is what I will say. Not great is what that's what I like to say all the time. Is not great. A loss. Sorry, just checking this. Okay, they were at least on the road. They didn't lose at home, which is good, but it doesn't matter. They should have won.
Doesn't matter.
There's really no excuse for this one. And that's all I'll say.
Isn't. Okay, well, there is really no excuse for it. It's sad because we were seeing an uphill trajectory for them, especially with the development of their new head coach, and they tanked that. They absolutely tanked that.
Yeah,
So very
and it was
enjoyable to
just
watch.
they took the lead and then they gave up a late goal in stoppage time and then started like literally it was 15 minutes that the game just turned on its head. And that was that. So
That's all they needed to break down your defense. 15 minutes. That's sad for you.
15 minutes.
So we move on to other losses. Yes, Club America lost 3-0 to Pachuca, reigning champions of Liga MX.
Ha.
You know, they won last season. Okay, first of all, I think this game. Oh, not even on International Women's Day can Gino be nice to me, but it's fine.
Yes, that's a fair. Wow, that's a fair point. I'm sorry. I apologize.
No,
I'm
just kidding.
sorry.
No, I'm just kidding.
I'll
You
be
can hate on us.
nice.
It was a 3-0. No, it was a 3-0 loss. We deserve that. But I will say that the scoreline does not accurately reflect what happened on that field. Yes, it took Pachuca about 3 or 4 minutes to get that first goal and then score again 5 minutes later. Yeah, we love that.
Yep.
But the refereeing was terrible. There was one call. So Club America scored. That was called offside. No, and then the second goal, the first one, I'll give it to them. That was accurate refereeing. It was offside, sure. The second goal, though, I'm going to need you and everybody listening to watch that highlight. The ball came from Luis Chavez, Pachuca, to Henry Martin, and then he scored. And they said it was offside. It literally can't be offside. It came from your opponent. That's not how that works. So that was called offside. Very, very.
Did it get passed back? Sorry, I didn't see this one. Did it get passed back?
Yeah, it was passed back by Luis Chavez, and Henry Martin took control, and he found the back of the net, and they called that offside because they, from what I remember, they went to VAR to check, and they found that Luis Chavez didn't deviate the ball, but he did. He did deviate it, and he touched it, and that's just shouldn't have been. Granted, they still lost, but it should have been a less embarrassing scoreline, like 2-1 at that point. And after 2 disallowed goals, it becomes a mental game, and I think it took an emotional hit to the team, and they lost 3-0. Granted, Pachuca is a great opponent, a great rival. Like, they've been doing really well this season, living up to expectations. Getting Alvarez doing so well. Even with the loss of Nico Ibanez to Tigres, Pachuca is handling things well. So I'll accept the loss, but it is a very deceiving scoreline.
Now, I distinctly remember when I was complaining about the referee for Cruz Azul, you said you can't use the referee as an excuse. So why does it change with Club America?
I do
you don't
not
remember
recall.
it? I'm sure you can find it.
I don't recall. I do not recall.
I choose not to comment.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, it's definitely. I think you're right when it comes to the mental toughness after having 2 goals disallowed. It's always difficult. So that's definitely something that is always difficult. But I mean, like you said, Pachuca. I mean, they took it by the reins, like took the bull by the horns, like right away. You know, they 4 minutes in, putting the ball in the back of the net. I mean, in contrast to what we were talking about Cruz Azul, I mean, it only took 30 minutes for Pachuca to score 3 goals. So, you know, it's like that's a problem, you know, from a Club America perspective. So we'll see what happens. But Club America get their first loss of the season. We'll see how they rebound now and moving forward.
Yeah, and I hope Dan Ortiz, the head coach, really switches out Oscar Jimenez, the goalkeeper. It was extremely disappointing from his end. He's been fighting for that starting role, being a substitute to Memo Ochoa, and now he finally gets that spotlight, and he messes up so badly on the first 2 goals. To the point where in the second half, anytime he had the ball, he was booed by home fans. Like, they were playing at the Estadio Azteca, and fans would just boo Oscar Jimenez. That has to be just absolutely heartbreaking for him after waiting so long to play.
And even in, like, I remember watching, again, it's just it is the biggest tournament in all of Mexico, the Copa por Mexico. I remember when watching Club America and that when Oscar Jimenez was in goal for them there after Ochoa left and whatnot. he just doesn't look comfortable in net a lot of the times. Like, he
Yeah.
doesn't look like he's comfortable in his own shoes doing what he's been,
Supposed to be doing.
being paid to do for 10 years, 15 years. So
Yeah.
he doesn't look comfortable. And that's the first thing I noticed. One of the first big things I noticed about Club America in net, when he's in net, they just didn't look comfortable. And, I think maybe there might need to be a goalkeeping change because, this can't keep happening if they want to, march up the table and get into one of those top 4 spots and get a bye.
Yeah, and I mean, Club America has the option. Malagon is sitting right there. Absolutely great choice. They signed him. The whole point was for him to play and become an up and coming figure. Third goalkeeper for the national team. We'll discuss briefly Diego Gola's first call up and first roster for the Nations League matches coming up in March. But Malagon did not make it. Not surprising because he's not playing. But
yeah.
I think along with all other Club America fans and Tan Ortiz, was waiting for Oscar Jimenez to get that yellow card so that technically he wouldn't be allowed to play next game. And that embarrassing, we have to switch the goalkeeper wouldn't have happened. But it did not. He did not receive a yellow card. So I hope to see Malagon, and I hope that Tan Ortiz can make that distinction because Jimenez really just doesn't belong at goal there. So, yeah. And sadly, but title contenders Chivas defeated Santos Laguna 2-0. It was very disappointing. Santos defense, once again, absolutely lacking, forcing Carlos Acevedo into the most uncomfortable situations as a goalkeeper, to the point where he was visibly upset after that second goal because he could not believe his eyes and what the backline had done. But Chivas looking really, really good without Alexis Vega, who's close to a comeback. So, yeah.
Really hitting their stride. Really hitting their stride
really
now.
are.
I mean, on a Santos side of things, they get the win last week, and then this week come back into losing ways. From a Chivas side of things, they're unbeaten in 7 games now. They've only lost 1 game all season. They have only even tied 3 other games. Well. So they're doing very well without Alexis Vega, which we thought was going to be an issue after that first match when he went, because I think it was the first match when he went down. But they've looked really, really good, and that's huge for them. I mean, they're kind of, just motoring through this schedule right now, and they seem to be picking up confidence each and every day, each and every game. So massive. And then once they get Alexis Vega back, it's only going to get better. So
a new leadership did the team very well.
Yeah, and they're in third right now, and only 4 points off of that first spot. So they've looked really, really good in a situation where we weren't sure if they were going to be that great.
Yeah. Kind of wrapping up before we finish, Diego Coca called up 34 players to the first Mexican national team call-up of the year. Some highlights that he included, obviously, Carlos Acevedo, Memo Ochoa, Hector Herrera, and Andres Guardado officially not on the roster, which was, I think, a great step towards that generational shift that fans were looking for. Julian Araujo, who we know left to Barcelona, is back in the roster. So that was extremely exciting. Marcelo Ruiz, a young figure. De La Rosa, young figures. So several new youngsters, and we'll get all into it when we have our Nations League episode, and after the U.S. men's national team have their roster announced, we'll get all into it. But important to acknowledge that Diego Coca is listening to what the fans want and understanding what the national team needs. Santi Jimenez in the call-up, no Rogelio Funes Mori. Several changes made, necessary changes, but it's exciting to see new leadership take control of the Mexican national team after the World Cup disaster.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems like they're moving in a certain direction and moving away from certain players and doing things that I think a lot of the Mexican national team supporters want. So, it's always good to see new faces, especially when you're at the beginning of a World Cup cycle, when there's, it's just Nations League. You don't have much to worry about. It's good to get those guys in, getting competitive matches in to make sure they're ready when it comes time to lace it up for a very important match. So, definitely a good sign for the Mexican national team that they're bringing in these types of players.
Very exciting. Just before we finish, also, don't forget tomorrow we're doing a Twitter Spaces to preview match day 3 for MLS and touch a little bit upon what happened with the Vancouver Whitecaps tonight. So stay tuned. As always, follow us on social media. Our show is on YouTube. And yeah, see you next time. Thanks for listening.
Peace.
Bye.